Hey everyone, this is Shannon Burgle, the host of the webinar. Glad that you could join us today, really appreciate it. Just a reminder that after the webinar, you will get a note and be directed to where you can download the white paper, see the slides for our presentation, or listen to the recording of the webinar. So with me today, I have Dan Barcheski, who's the founder and CEO of Axios HR. Axios HR was founded in 1988 and has been servicing the Michigan market in three main areas: insurance, human resources, and staffing. In 2011, Axios HR became an employee-owned company. And Dan's here with us today to talk about his personal experience as a founder and give us some strategic insight on how businesses make the changes that they need to grow sustainably and thrive. So welcome, Dan, and enjoy our time together.
Thank you, Shannon. Well, our presentation and see what we are up to. I based the presentation predominantly on my own experience as a business owner. So as an introduction, I founded the company in May of 1988. So we'll be 30 years old. I founded the company when I was 10. That makes me 40. I'm a young guy. My own background is I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I went to high school here. My father was a teacher and coach. My mother was a stay-at-home mom and a seamstress at a long past company called Jacobson's. And I founded the company in '88 as a goal I've always had in my life to own a business. We started out very small, and I won't get into the details of how small, but there was only two of us. And since that time, we've grown into one of the largest employers in West Michigan. So the goal I have today is to try to summarize through a series of slides how you can go from just surviving as a business owner to thriving. And so that's our intent today, is to try to deliver some value to you that you may or may not already know, and hopefully piece it all together at the end with a little bow. And so let's get ourselves started here. The ideal time for change, a lot of times small business owners are so wrapped up in their business down in the trenches that they really don't look up much. They're just busy trying to earn a living for themselves. I certainly can relate to that myself. But it's different than a person that you see on TV that's the CEO of a major corporation, and they're getting, their boatloads of data from various sources helping them navigate their own business. In the meantime, you're down there trying to earn a living. I've done all that. I know it's difficult, but I did try to stay as current as I could, even though I was running a small company. And part of that was, how I navigated the sea of change that occurred over the last number of years. Intuition plays a big part in how I went about surviving. I downplayed a lot in academic worlds. They don't talk about intuition a lot, but I really think your gut could tell you a lot about what is and is not the right thing to do. But sometimes, even though our gut says we need to change, we're not really sure exactly what that means. And so there are many examples around West Michigan of businesses. I gave one earlier, my mother working at Jacobson's. They no longer are open. They did not adapt to change fast enough and are forced to close their doors. It's very unfortunate, but it's very regular occurrence. So anyway, on to our next slide, please. The ideal time for change, all businesses have normal cycles. And what that means is whatever you've designed as your business generally is going to accelerate. It's going to, because of all the work you did, it's going to gain some sort of momentum. It's going to gain some sort of cash flow from it. And then over time, what happens is that business either has not changed or the original idea and the systems you put in place are beginning to ebb or peak. And at that time, normally there's a plateau or a time where you're reinvesting in new ideas, new equipment, new people, and you are really kind of forced to change, or you're going to begin to trend down. So what's obvious to most business owners is that things aren't quite right. I'm losing business, and I'm not sure why, but I know that the income isn't quite as good. It's not the economy, it might be us. So what is the best time to seek change in your business? And mine trying to encourage you to do is to think about that before you've reached your peak and you've actually begun to decline, and you're now really kind of bailing the boat or in a crisis mode. So that's predominantly what we're going to talk about today. Next slide, please. So here's a life cycle. I'm not going to spend much time on it. It's basically a product life cycle, but it could be a business life cycle. You begin, initially when you begin a business, normally it actually goes down. You've invested money, you're losing money in the business, you're not generating enough income to offset your overhead, but that doesn't last very long with successful ideas or business concepts, and you grow. And so at A is what we're going to try to encourage you, point A on that life cycle curve, we're going to try to encourage you to attempt to change then versus waiting until after you've peaked and you've slid over to B. Now, the basic premise of this is that whether it's your personal life or whether it's business, when you're at point B, generally speaking, you're in a crisis mode, and unfortunately, many times it's too late to change. Ultimately, this is when you don't have the energy, you don't have the finances, your business has begun to slip, so you don't have the cash in the bank. And make matters worse, the people that have worked for you are discrediting you because you led the company down towards the bottom versus continuing to accelerate up towards the top. And so, even though it would seem obvious, were it not for the fact that at A, I mean, it's obvious just looking at this graph that, of course, you should change it. But the problem is there's nothing indicating you should. So that's because everything's working well. So they always say, you know, it's the famous, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, or if it ain't broke, fix it. You've heard all these messages from the consultants world, but the truth is, when you're probably best and all signals indicate things are great, you start looking for your next opportunity for this business, how it fits. So the secret, of course, is to leave at A. When you do have the resources, then the opportunity to create a new curve for yourself. That's when momentum is good, faith in the owner is good, the bank is behind you, and you actually have the time to try something with the business or add an additional service or product to the business. However, that I've always judged it by, will it take us completely down if this is something we're going to do? And if not, how bad will it hurt? Generally speaking, I always thought to myself, it's going to hurt real bad, but we're going to try it. And if we don't try it, we're not going to go out of business, but if it works, good for us. And in general, based on my own intuition and honestly, a lot of data collecting and a lot of resource reading, generally speaking, we made the right decision. We've, of course, started some divisions and they didn't work out. They did hurt, but it didn't take the business down as well. So here you go. This is the point, of course, as in the beginning of that life curve, we're starting a new one. We start at A. You're going to see some negative returns initially. Your profit isn't going to be quite as high as it was at A because you reinvested your money in people and processes, services, and you go down a bit. That's natural. That's when you talk to your bank, you talk to your people, you explain why you're making the investment, what you're doing, and that this is what's going to occur, and generally speaking, you take off again. This is the reoccurring product life cycle theme. If you've ever seen athletes endorse shoes, an example, other than Michael Jordan, who's been on it forever, generally speaking, these producers of shoes use athletes, and as the athlete's life peters out, they hire a new one and they endorse the product, and off they go. It's the very same thing with your own business. So we use Tiger Woods, whether you feel he's a good example or not. He was an outstanding golfer. Initially in 1996, he was winning 25% of the tournaments he entered. It was at that time that he made the fundamental decision to change his swing. After changing his swing because he felt he was not improved enough, he dropped down in 98 to only winning 5% of the tournaments he entered. However, once he perfected his swing, he had achieved all the way up by 2000 to 45%. He again changed his swing. I'm not sure if he changed his coach. I can't remember. I think he did. And also changed his swing, and down he went. Of course, at 5%, I think he was crashing a car and avoiding a golf club. But he peaked that back down at 5%. And then, of course, the acceleration occurred once he cleared himself out of that. He'd actually changed his swing, and he went up to 53. He changed his swing again, went down to 44, and this time accelerated up to 67%. So in terms of just a pure example that we can all understand, I use Tiger Woods as an example of someone that clearly embraces this idea that I'm trying to promote today. So what would inspire a person to attempt this? How do you know what direction to go? First thing you can do is your existing business is full of ideas if you know where to look. Your customer service team or yourself, someone coming into the business or calling the business and asking for something you don't either provide or are currently not doing. Those are new ideas that should be written down and thought about. If you do have a customer service team, talk to them about complaints, talk to them about the things that they're hearing out there, and then also look at your competitors in other unrelated industries. I can't state how important it is that you not just study the industry you happen to be in, but that you look at other totally unrelated industries. This has really helped me find new ideas for my business that I would have imagined, and that certainly the industry isn't thinking about, because it's kind of a paradigm problem for them. They've got a way of thinking and a way of viewing things. You go somewhere else that they think a little bit differently, you learn a lot. So that's an idea of how to do fresh eyes. Fresh eyes is also a good way of doing that is through just hiring someone new into the business and telling them day one that you want them to tell you what they see and what they see as problems inside your business. And it doesn't matter what they say. They have to be, can't be defensive, because frankly, they can see a lot that's wrong. And once you train them on the right way, they've lost those fresh eyes. And of course, they're not as valuable as when they first come into the business. So between industries that are non-competitive industries and fresh eyes, those are two good ideas as to where to look for this new business model. So what is the Bermuda Triangle? This incredibly amazing term. We all know that a lot of planes and boats have been lost in the Bermuda Triangle. But they use that term for small businesses because generally a period of time of change when businesses come in, and they either change from the way they did things informally to more formal processes, or they stay the same. And a lot of companies don't come out of the Bermuda Triangle, and a lot of companies then eventually fade away and stop doing business over time. Informal systems are the way you've always done things around here. It's the answer when someone questions you that's what you reply back. Well, that's just what we do. Convinced, of course, that you're right. But a lot of times, so those informal systems that, of course, worked when you first started the business no longer work today because you've grown. And the consumers become more sophisticated. They've got more information. And this transition to a more formal way of doing things is necessary in order for you to survive. So it's market driven. People will come in with disruptions, internet-based applications or new service models that you could not have anticipated, etc. Those are one reason to consider change. And then the other might be that you're honestly looking to possibly polish the apple, or you're looking to transition a son or daughter or possibly a coworker into this business, and you don't want this thing to fail. You want your legacy to be a good legacy. So those are possible reasons for change. So here we go. This is our Bermuda Triangle. The reason the informal structures are so important early in a business's life, that's the red curve, is because, frankly, to invest in the formal ways of doing business and have all that structure in place early, unless you're a great venture capital raising, seed capital raising person, you're a bootstrapper like myself, investing in those types of things, the cost of doing business is so high, it really isn't something you can survive. You'll just never generate enough cash to pay for these highly formal systems that a lot of successful businesses have right out or over time. You can't have it out of the gate. But as you enter this crisscrossed moment where the Bermuda Triangle you enter, trust me, if you're either in it or you're entering it and you know it. You know that you've got to do something different to survive. That's when you transition into more formal systems and structure that, of course, take the cost of doing business down, and the return over time for you is substantial. Assuming you stay in informal systems, basically your cost structures go through the roof. You stay in paper, you don't transition to a paperless business. You continue to do things archaically through like manually versus automation. These are all things that eventually drive your cost structure so high that you no longer are able to survive. So these are just some examples. We're not going to walk through every single one of them. It's worth a read if you have the time later. But this is what it does look like in terms of progress from an informal to formal system. Just some examples for you to consider. So the first step towards change, if the time for change is now, what is that first step? Signs should be very clear. There's pricing competition. By the way, don't get into that. Stay high. If you're an independent, you don't want to use price as your competitive advantage. That's a commoditization strategy that will drive you out of business. You need to find out a way of delivering your services with lower cost and higher profit, and be able to sell that to the marketplace in a truly sincere way. You'll see young people leave because they're not satisfied with the way things are being run. Ineffective sales because you're not relevant, and the marketing techniques really aren't up to speed. So seek change agents, people that can help you. There are things that you as a business owner over time, I'm telling you, in the 30 years I've been in business, I've seen more rules and regulations come out of our government than I can even imagine. I don't want to get into politics here, but I have to tell you, I was raised, my father was a teacher and my grandfather was a UAW 38-year on the floor inspector. And you can draw a conclusion as to how I was brought up. But it didn't take me long owning the business to understand that maybe all these rules and regulations weren't necessarily worthwhile, and it really hurt our company for quite a long time. So anyway, seek someone that can help you see an outside perspective and show you where change is most important, and then chart your path. Look at the actions that you're going to need to take in order for you to achieve your success. Look at what the business model looks like today, your current state, and what should that future state look like? And how are you going to get there? Those are important questions to consider and ask yourself. And if you need help, it's always good to have a good sounding board and someone that's competent in an area like this. I don't necessarily have to bring in the highest priced folks. That might be someone you know, but a lot of times there are some competent services out there that can help you. And of course, I'd include our company as one of those people. So basically, there's a diagnostic to kick off the informal to formal transition. Check it out. There's some white pages or white papers there that you can look at that address this topic. It's been something I've written about a number of times. Might seem repetitive, but it's necessary. And I highly encourage you to call with questions today and ask anything that might be coming to your mind that made it maybe sound too easy. It's not. It's a lot of hard work. As you well know, if you own your own company, it's not simple. It's very difficult. And whatever rewards you happen to get is good for you. But with that, we'll take some questions and answers, please. And of course, if there are none, I've done such a great job of presenting to you folks today. We'll let it go. Please reach out to me. You can do that any day of the week, providing, or through just a phone call. I'm happy to answer any individual questions you have. And I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. Hopefully we help you. Obviously, there's a lot of work on the backside of this. If you need advice, we're happy to provide that. Time today.